Would you buy a 6.4 kilo one-by road bike that costs £10,000? I'm guessing the answer to that question is probably no. So why on earth have Trek released such a thing? This week, the American brand dropped the Trek Madone SLR 9 Axis 1x Gen 8. I know, it's a very catchy name. It uses the same frame as the other Madone models, but has managed to drop a claimed 600 grams, taking it to that 6.4 kilo weight. So how have they done it? Well, I scrutinised the spec sheet and listed all the key differences that would have an impact on weight. Of course, the front derailleur and attached Axis battery have gone, and that saves 170 grams. The wheels have gone from being 51mm deep to 37. This saves 85 grams according to Trek's claim weights for the wheel sets. I couldn't find any claimed weights for the 1x chain set, so I've estimated a saving of 80 grams for the lack of an inner chainring. The cassette actually adds a bit of extra weight as it gains a few extra teeth to the tune of 22 grams. Bigger savings come from the tyres and inflation method because by ditching a claimed 180 millilitres of sealant and instead fitting two 35 gram Pirelli TPU inner tubes, 110 grams is saved. Now, I have worked off the basis of 1mm of sealant equaling 1 gram. The tyres also have the same 110 gram saving for the pair as they go from being Bontrager's own to a pair of Pirelli P0 Race RS tyres. All in, that totals an estimated saving of 532 grams. But if I also include a potential saving from a raw carbon paint finish, another potential 40 grams could be saved, bringing us to within 5% of that claimed 600 gram saving. Given that some of my numbers are a bit willy, I am happy to give Trek the benefit of the doubt and say they've done it. I think what's interesting is where the biggest savings have come from though. The tyres and inflation method are accountable for nearly 40% of savings, and the lack of front derailleur and battery make up another 30%. In my mind, this means you could buy the standard 2x Madone, which costs the same amount of money, fit some lighter tyres and TPU tubes, ditch the front mech and replace it with a chain guide, and be 70% of the way there. Of course, chain lines will be off, so the 1x effect won't be as good as it would be with a dedicated 1x chain set, but I think you get the point. What I'm struggling to do is understand how this new build from Trek offers the customer either a better product or better value. The thing which then confuses me even more is this bike's split personality. The Madone has aero ancestors. It has always been a bike designed to be super aero. Now it's been merged with the Emonda, it is classed as an all-rounder, but thanks to the ISOFlow, tube profiles and incredibly aggressive position, I think it's still fair to class it as a more aero-leaning bike. The 1x setup also lends itself to those who want to ride either flat or rolling parcours, and it could be argued that the aero chainset is also aimed for that aero-concerned customer. But on the other hand, the wheels have dropped from 51mm to 37, which undoubtedly makes the bike less aero and slightly lighter. The cassette and chainring combination offers an easiest gear of a 48 tooth chainring and a 36 tooth sprocket on the cassette, so it's hardly a climbing gear. Again, this tailors the bike more towards those who are after fast, flat riding and have less of a concern for weight and would probably want those deeper 51mm wheels. Who is this bike for then? I cannot conceive who the customer for this bike is. If you have any ideas, then please do drop them down below because I am at a loss. The only scenario where I can see this bike coming in handy is for insanely strong riders. I'm talking about Pogacar levels of strength who exclusively want to ride hilly time trials. You could argue it would be good in a crit race, but in that scenario, you'd probably rather have the deeper wheels and a tighter cassette. The bike is UDH compatible, so you could opt for a Red Explore group set, and that is an option which is available via Trek's Project One bike builder. Doing this would open up the gear range, but in that instance, again, I have no clue who would be asking for that. Trek is making it very clear that this build is UCI illegal, so it's not for the pros. But happily, the vast majority of cyclists aren't bound by cycling governing bodies. However, the notoriously aggressive geometry of the bike will also limit who can sensibly be fitted to it. Again, leading me to thinking the intended rider has to be a borderline professional. When the majority of changes that Trek have made are so easy to do yourself, I wonder why you'd limit yourself by buying the 1x variant. The 2x costs the same, and it's easier to make that bike 1x than it is the other way around. To its credit, I think the available colourways look really cool, and the sizing of cockpits and crank lengths across the range of bike sizes is really good. I also like seeing a bike come out with TPU tubes as standard. To be honest, I think we'll start to see more of this. I'm glad this bike hasn't come out with an inflated price tag on the virtue of its lower weight, and I'm sure these will actually only be built in very small numbers or simply created to order. Ultimately, it's just left me feeling a bit confused and wondering what gap in the market Trek is trying to fill. I commend Trek for doing something different, but in this case, unless any of you can point out something obvious that I'm missing, I'll have to say that this bike is a bit of a miss.